Jericho, the impenetrable fortress. Jericho was not just any city, it was the most important strategic gateway for the Israelites to enter the promised land of Canaan after crossing the Jordan River. Capturing Jericho would divide Canaan, creating a great military advantage. Jericho was famous for its solid defense system. The walls were high and thick. Archaeological excavations show that Jericho had 2 layers of solid stone walls, with houses built right on the inner layer of the wall. This made breaking through or climbing over nearly impossible with the warfare technology of the time. The Bible describes the city as tightly shut up, with no one going in or out. This indicates that the residents of Jericho were ready, completely blockaded, and confident that their fortress could not be breached. Limited military experience. The Israelites had just spent 40 years wandering in the wilderness. Although they had a new generation of warriors, they lacked professional experience in siege techniques, such as building siege towers, using battering rams, or tunneling. Their equipment was mainly suited for fighting on the plains or in the wilderness, completely inadequate for confronting a strong fortress like Jericho. According to all conventional rules of warfare, the task of a nomadic army, lacking siege experience, facing a solid, well-defended fortress like Jericho was an impossible mission. The contrast between Jericho's strong fortress and the Israelites' military position created a context where victory could only come through supernatural intervention. This reinforced the foundation for God's strange command that followed, for the people to realize that power comes not from human strategy or strength, but from absolute obedience to His extraordinary plan. The Lord's strange command. After facing the impossible challenge of Jericho, God did not give Joshua any traditional siege plan, but instead a completely unusual and illogical strategy, designed to eliminate all elements of human strength and cunning, focusing only on obedience and His power. The marching order around the city was arranged ceremonially, emphasizing the central role of God and His presence. The armed warriors, they led the formation. Their role was not to attack, but to protect and signify readiness for battle, even though fighting was not permitted. 7 priests and the horns. This was the core element of the action. They carried 7 horns, shofars, made of ram's horns. The sound of the horns, tuvo, was not a battle cry, but a ritual sound, blown continuously, signifying the presence of the Lord, while also being a declaration of the judgment soon to come upon the city of Jericho. The Ark of the Covenant. This was the focus of the procession, carried by other priests who followed the 7 hornblowers. The Ark of the Covenant symbolized the presence and throne of God among the Israelites. The Ark's presence in the center indicated that the Lord Jehovah Himself was the commander and the one fighting the battle. The entire populace followed last. Their role was to maintain silent discipline and to be witnesses to the Lord's impending action. The command was divided into 2 distinct phases, both focusing on obedience and waiting. 6 days of perseverance. Each day, the entire procession walked only 1 circle around the city of Jericho. Absolute silence. Joshua clearly commanded, "You shall not shout or let your voice be heard, nor shall any word come out of your mouth." This was to prevent the people from complaining, questioning this absurd strategy, or relying on their own cunning. It was to train patience and faith in God's plan through a repetitive action with no immediate clear result. The solemn silence, only the sound of the horns and the sound of footsteps, likely caused great astonishment and fear for those guarding the city walls. The decisive 7th day. On the 7th day, the people had to wake up early and circle the city 7 times, a total of 13 circuits in 7 days. Only after the 7th circuit, when the priests blew a long blast on the horns, a special signal, did Joshua command, "Shout! For the Lord has given you the city." This shout was not a battle cry to break the wall, but a shout of faith declaring victory, confirming that God's promise had been fulfilled right before their eyes. The power of strange obedience, the silence. The strategy of circling Jericho in silence was not a military tactic, but a spiritual lesson designed by God to build faith and absolute obedience in the Israelites. Circling the city once each day for 6 days, and then 7 times on the 7th day, was completely meaningless in terms of siege strategy. It demonstrated perseverance and adherence to a command that lacked any logic. We are taught to patiently follow what God commands, even when no immediate results are seen, and the action seems time-consuming and useless from a human perspective. In the Bible, the number 7 is a number of perfection and completion, often related to the work of God. The 7th action on the 7th day was the completion of the process of obedience. It reminds us that victory only comes when we completely fulfill what God has commanded. Declaration of faith. The shout was only executed precisely when Joshua gave the command after the long blast of the horn, i.e., after obedience regarding time and quantity was completed. The shout was a declaration of faith that God has given us this city. This was the confirmation of victory before the wall fell, not the action that caused the collapse. The entire populace shouted together. God's power was released through the unified obedience and trust of all the people. The supernatural power of God. The conclusion of the Jericho story is the most resounding proof of the power of obedience and faith, as the result far exceeded all human expectations and logic. After the Israelites had completely fulfilled the command, circling 7 times on the 7th day, the long blast of the horns, Joshua commanded them to shout. The moment the shouting rang out, the wall of Jericho collapsed immediately. The wall fell down flat. It is noteworthy that the wall seemed to fall inward, creating a ramp for the Israelites to go up into the city, every man straight before him. According to archaeology, a section of the wall belonging to Rahab, who had helped the spies, did not collapse. This proves that the collapse was not due to a natural earthquake, but a deliberate miracle by God, both executing judgment and protecting those who trusted him. The victory at Jericho absolutely cannot be attributed to any human factor. There were no siege machines, no arrows were shot, and no battle took place outside the walls. The victory did not come from the strength, cunning, or fighting skills of the Israelite army. This result was the supernatural intervention of God. He himself acted to level the impossible obstacle, proving to the people that the Lord Jehovah is the one who fights for them. God used this collapse as a direct reward for the absolute obedience of the people in following the strange command, circling and remaining silent, and their faith in the final act of shouting. This is a valuable lesson. When people are willing to give up their own strength to obey God, He will act with extraordinary power. The event of Jericho solidified Joshua's leadership and affirmed the power of God among the nations. This miracle instilled terror in the hearts of the other Canaanite nations, paving the way for the Israelites' subsequent conquests. Jericho is the most powerful proof that strange obedience, circling and silence will lead to strange results, walls collapsing, demonstrating that, by faith, the walls of Jericho fell down.